Hello everyone, Colin Cadet here for Woodwork Web. Today we're going to revisit the biscuit cutter. And there's been some conversations and some different ideas flowing around about these, and I have to admit I'm not a great big fan of biscuit cutters. So we want to go back and revisit some of the things, and we're going to do some experimenting, and I'm actually going to make some biscuits and glue up some boards and see whether there's a difference in how they're glued up, or whether the with biscuits is stronger or the same strength or actually weaker. So we're going to go through that, we'll all learn together, and we'll see what biscuits really do. Now what I've got laid out here, and I've pre-cut some of these already, I have first of all some very dry cedar, and I've actually marked where I'm going to make the biscuit cuts, and we're going to be using the biggest biscuits that there are available, just because that's what's probably 90% of what's used is the biggest biscuits. I've got some oak, and I've already cut this and marked that, and I don't know if you can see the lines on there, but that's where the biscuits will be made, and we'll glue those up. And I'm going to do a couple of different glues on these just so that we experiment and kind of see what these do. And I've got some maple yet that I haven't trimmed down yet, and we'll make some biscuit cuts on all of these. We'll glue them together, and tomorrow we'll come back and we'll actually pull these apart, and we'll stick them in the vise here and try and tear these joints apart, and we'll just see how strong these biscuits are. So here's our two pieces of oak. They're actually cut from the same board. You can actually see how those go together like that. So I thought that was the best way to test this. So what I'm actually going to do, you can see the lines on here, and I'm actually going to go through now and we'll cut the biscuit slots on each one of those. So you just line up the hole in there. There's a little tick mark in there. You just line it up with the slot. And that blade, when it's retracted, it's fully encased in that, so it is safe. Okay, in the biscuits, we always keep biscuits in a plastic bag so the air doesn't get at them, because they will absorb moisture and expand, and sometimes they'll expand to the point that they won't actually fit in. So these are actually a little on the snug side now, and just a good idea to test them before you go ahead and start doing the gluing. And these are all fitting very nice, and that's a nice tight fit, and that's what I wanted to see. A couple things that I don't like about biscuit cutters: sometimes these are not as snug as these are, and when you put the boards together they can move up and down a little bit, and that's one of the things that a biscuit cutter is designed to do, or biscuits are designed to do, so that when you glue the boards together so they don't slip and slide like that. But sometimes they do move enough that you really need to make sure that the joints are good there. The other thing that I'm not in love with biscuit jointers, and I hope that one of these boards that we cut would do that, sometimes they'll cut a little tab that will flip up, and if you're not watching very carefully, when you glue that and put them together, those boards will not ever come together because there's a little piece of wood in there. And I find that one of the annoying things and it happens, all biscuit cutters do it that I've ever used. They don't do it on every board. It depends on the type of wood and where the grain is. So you do have to watch for those little ticks of wood there. Make sure that you dry fit everything before you put them together. Now when I glue these up, typically I run a bead of glue right down each side, and then I just pop the biscuits in. What I'm going to do in this case, I'm actually going to do that, but I'm actually going to work, in this second one, I'm actually going to work a lot of glue in and actually glue the biscuit in as well. Now in a big glue up, you probably don't have the chance to do that. So in a larger glue up, this is the one that most people would be doing, just a bit of glue in there. And this one here would be, you might be able to do this for smaller glue ups. So I'm going to go ahead now and we'll put this one together. Now there's my two boards, and normally I would just run a bead of glue down like that on each side, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Then I would take my brush and make sure, any kind of a glue up, make sure you get a good coverage on there, because you don't want to get voids. And that's what, if you don't have good glue coverage, that's what you'll get, is voids when you put the boards together. Now normally what I would do is just stick this in here on both sides. You see how that, but in this case I'm actually going to work the glue in here as best I can before it starts setting up. Now that's why you wouldn't have a chance to do this with a big glue up, because your glue would start setting up on you before you could do that. And I'm actually, in this case, I'm even going to put glue, which is, I've never heard of before, but I'm actually going to put glue right on the biscuit on both sides and put that in there. It's pretty fiddly work, and you normally wouldn't have time to do this. And the same thing here, I want to work the glue in that side as well. Okay, now we'll put these together and we'll clamp them up, and I'll carry on and do the rest of them off camera, and we'll come back tomorrow and take these out when the glue is dry and hard, and we'll see if we can pull these apart. So here we are back the next day, and this has been sitting overnight, clamped overnight. There's our oak, and I wiped that off, at least the one side of it, yesterday. Get that out of the way. Now here's our cedar. I've already taken the one off the maple, it's there. But I wanted to show you this one here. This is exactly one of the reasons that I'm not in love with Biscuit. The assumption is that biscuit cutters or biscuit joints are supposed to line up the wood, and they do to a degree, but, and I'll just show you a close-up of this. You know, here's an example. There's that piece of cedar that I glued yesterday. There's the top side that I've taken, and I don't know, you might, if you can see that, that little, there's about a 1/16 of an inch, and it's on both sides, so it's not that the boards weren't. And you can actually, I can see it from here anyway, you can actually see how that's rocking. That's one of the points that I dislike about all biscuit cutters, is that the theory was that they're supposed to align them, but if you were working with planed wood that was already pre-planed and pre-finished, you'd actually have to cut that apart on the table saw and re-glue those. So anyway, one of my pet peeves of biscuit joiners. Let's look at the other parts now. Now what we're doing here is we're testing whether biscuit joints are equal to the glue in the joint, or whether they make the joint better or worse, or they might not make any difference at all. We're going to find that out today. What I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to be cutting on either side. There's the biscuit on that side, and I'm going to be cutting on either side of that, because we want to cut right in between the biscuit. And this one here was the one that we put the extra glue in, and so we'll be doing that one as well, cutting that. And then this piece in the middle, we're actually going to test it and just see how strong the glue is. This one, the cedar, we only put one biscuit in this one, so I'll be trimming that one on either side, and then we'll actually test that cedar. and the same with the maple. And there's where the biscuit was in the maple, so we'll be trimming on either side. And I actually have a biscuit here, and I've measured the actual joint, so we're going to cut right at the very edge of the joint on each side, and then we'll test the wood without a biscuit in it, and we'll test the wood with the biscuit in it, and let's see which one's stronger, and maybe they're equal. So you can see what I've done. I've actually taken all of the strips now, and I've cut all of the wood into strips so that we can test with the biscuit and without. So there's the maple, there's the oak, here is the cedar, and I actually have the cedar one, and it's already stuck, and I've put it in the machinist vise, and I have it clamped on the top so that the vise grips actually are biting the whole piece of wood on the top, so it's going to get an even pull. And we've set up this come along on the bench, and what I'm going to do is pull the come along. I could hit it with a hammer, but I wanted to put an even pressure on it, so we're going to use the come along, and it will break that cedar off. So what we want to see is if it's going to break at the glue line or not. So let's go ahead and do the first test. There's our first test, and not surprisingly, it broke. It didn't break at the glue line, it broke somewhere else. So let's try the same test now with the maple and with the oak. Now that's interesting. The maple broke at the same place, but again it didn't break at the glue line. Now let's go on to the last one and try the oak. So there's the oak, and again it still, you can tell by how rough it is, it still didn't break at the glue line. In fact, you can see in this one, you can see the glue line is just below my finger there, and that's running. It's very close. It's broken very close to the glue line, but you can tell by how rough it is. It's not a nice clean break, and how rough it is. It's actually the wood has failed before the glue has failed. So what we can say so far is that biscuit joints were not done to make the wood stronger, to make the joint stronger, because clearly the wood is failing before the glue is failing, so making it stronger than that wouldn't make any point. But let's just see how strong actual biscuit joints are. Maybe they're stronger. We'll see where they break. We'll run the same tests. Well, that's no surprise. The wood broke before the cedar. Cedar's pretty soft, so of course the wood broke before the joint. So let's go on to the maple and see how strong the maple biscuit joint is. And again, the wood has failed before the joint. So that's good. It means the biscuits are apparently holding up very well. And there's the oak test, and once again the wood has failed before the joint has failed. In this case we had a biscuit joint. What I'm going to do, just for fun, I'm going to put this wood back in and see if we can actually make the biscuit joint fail. It doesn't prove anything, except what it does prove is that there's really no difference in strength using a biscuit joint or not using a biscuit joint, because no matter what we've done here with three different kinds of very popular woods, in all cases the wood has failed before either the joint has failed with just glue, or whether before the joint has failed by using a biscuit cutter, or a biscuit joint. So either way, it doesn't appear to make much difference to the strength of the joint using biscuits or not using biscuits. Once again, even when we tried to get closer and closer to the joint, the biscuit and the glue was still holding fast. So the second test of this didn't prove anything that we didn't already know, that the joints, either with a biscuit or without a biscuit, the glue is holding stronger than the actual wood is. The wood is failing before the glue is. So now we know. I've always worried that when I'm using a biscuit jointer, am I actually compromising the joint in some way? And this test clearly showed that with the bits of wood that we had, that it didn't really matter whether you were using a biscuit joint or not a biscuit joint. In all cases, the wood was failing before the joint was. So that's about as good as you can get. So I actually feel a little bit better about the biscuit jointer now. I do use these from time to time. I don't use them to line up the boards unless the boards are wavy, and then sometimes I'll use that. If you really want to line the boards up much more finely, dowels or even a doweling machine will give you a little bit finer alignment. So that concludes our video today. If you're new to us, we ask you to subscribe, and we ask you to go to Woodwork Web as well, because there will be an associated article that goes along with this, as there is with most of our videos. So, I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.